I want to talk to you about bowling industry great Len Nicholson. Len Nicholson, a very dear personal friend of mine, was recently voted into the PBA Hall of Fame. He was elected in January of 2011 for meritorious service, and not only to the PBA, but to the bowling industry in general. Now, Len started his career with the PBA in the summer of 1971. And with that, he was assistant to Sam Baca as the PBA lane man. Len was the field representative, and Sam Baca worked from the office. Together, Sam would do the pre-tournament checks. Lenny would really do all the physical work. And in those days, when you had to do the lanes for the PBA Tour, to try to create a fair and equitable lane condition for everybody from day to day during each tournament, that means from the Pro-Am and practice session day through the 2 qualifying days and through 2 days of finals play and finally for television shows. It was a very, very difficult challenge to try to keep things simple and keep things fair for all the players. Naturally, there was always going to be controversy. Naturally, some players would think that the lanes were set up for other groups of players, left-handers versus right-handers, people who delivered the ball up the boards or people who had a stronger role and could hook the ball more. All those things were challenges that Len Nicholson had to face, and he did that with style and with grace. He worked very, very hard. And in those days, in the early 1970s, when Len first began, there was not sophisticated lane machines and lane equipment. Heck, he had to use a doggone bug spray can with a canister, a cylinder, and a pump handle on the other end in order to fill it up with lane oil and then spray and release it through pressure release in order to get oil on the lane surface. Not an exact science, ladies and gentlemen. And also he had to use a bed and gutter mop to push Turkish towels to spread the oil as evenly and as consistently as he could from lane to lane across the bowling centers. Again, not exact science. But Len overall did a great job until the days came when the equipment got better for lane maintenance, the oils improved, the lane cleaner substances improved. Len had a very difficult job. He had to clean the lanes by hand and then go back and oil them. Work all night. Then he would go back to the hotel room, clean up, and come back and watch the squads bowl, particularly the first day of qualifying, so he could see exactly if the strategy was working out the way they had planned to make the lane conditions fair for the tournament. Now, sometimes the lane surfaces would yield higher scores. They were a more level surface, a very even and smooth, not a real burned out ball track in the surface, and the scores would be reasonably high. They would be reasonably good relative to the bowling ball equipment of those times. And sometimes the surfaces weren't so good. They were very uncontrollable. The surfaces had severe depressions in the ball track, and Len would have to come up with ways to create angles for the pros to play so the condition would hold up for the length of the whole week during the tournament. Not an easy challenge. So enduring all that, plus enduring the controversy and enduring the frustrations by the competitive players, accusing Len of all kinds of things that were not true, I watched him handle all that with grace. He would listen. He would take anything the pros could dish out when they were frustrated, and many of them would just unfairly target him and get things off their chest that might have been building up. And he would take it like a man, and he would wait, and when they were finished, he would do everything he could to try to explain to them or help them. In many cases, he would offer to meet them and work with them on the lanes or talk to them about the strategies of lane conditions, the oils used, and what they were trying to accomplish with the PBA procedures. All that came from a person who was bigger than life, a gregarious personality who cared about everybody more than he did himself. And through those 20 years or so that Len worked in the PBA, which precipitated his election into the Hall of Fame, Len Nicholson endured some tough times personally. And like all champions, he would overcome those tough times. Things like divorces. And one thing that Len doesn't talk about very much, and I hope this isn't awkward for him for me to mention it now, but the loss of one of his sons. Anytime a parent has to lose a child, it's very difficult. But I watched Len handle that and take it in stride and make make sense out of things and not lose his faith, his composure, or his belief in people. And for that alone, Len Nicholson deserves to be in the PBA Hall of Fame. Now, in my article, and I know you saw the article because you couldn't have found this video unless you spotted the article in the Bowlversity section of bowlingball.com, this article has an interview with Len Nicholson. I asked him 10 different questions, and if you're interested, you should read the article and read his responses. I don't have time to go through it in this video clip, but I wanted you to know that he took great deal of concern and care to accurately reflect and communicate his answers to the questions that were posed to him. You know, it's not often people typically get elected in the halls of fame purely for performance, but behind the scenes, the public doesn't get to know them. Len Nicholson was a very public person. He would always work very hard to help the bowlers, whether they're amateurs or professionals. He worked hard to establish a reputation that he was doing the job very professionally, and because of that, we think that the PBA transitioned through 20 to 30 years of success in lane conditioning procedures, which has led now to the 5 different patterns that we see on the tour that are advertised through his work with the foundation, his work with the Kegel Company, and so on. Len's communication in the industry, his position in the industry, has really been second to none, and he deserves his election into the PBA Hall of Fame. And as a friend of mine who started together with Len many years ago, and we knew each other before our professional careers started, I'm so very proud of you, Len, for what you've accomplished. Hail to the champion, Len Nicholson. Thank you.